There we
We
go.
are going into technically the second episode of this podcast. However, the last one may be gone in the ether if Justin doesn't hurry up and give me that VOD. But Justin is not here today. Instead, we have other Justin, Zach, as he's normally known, but
He's backup Justin today.
He wanted to do this whole bit where we just called them both Justin, and I just immediately called him Zach.
I wanted you to call everyone that ever was on the show that wasn't you two Justin.
Which would be a funny bit. That's the thing. I think that
Which
it will make more.
Be a funny bit.
I think that it'd be funnier if just like every time that Justin can't be on the show, we're like, and playing the role of Justin tonight, we have Zach or Sid or whoever, you know?
I can do that.
Yeah. Well, we are joined here by Zach, and of course we have Adam back from last time. You'll see him at the bottom of the screen there. And me, Shawn, Stratos person, this guy, new background because I moved. I just realized I have a bunch of clutter on my bed still that I haven't moved yet. Got some stands for my lights, got this Bluetooth headset and my Yeti mic box. Should have moved that before we started things, but whatever. It's a work in progress. I might change things around next time so you can see my bookshelf in the back, but there's not a lot of room to work with, so we'll see. But anyway, yeah, we're back to the same old shit. But this time, as we mentioned last week, we are looking at spells again, but this time with a twist. We're going specifically for lower level spells that have some sort of condition that can make them permanent. It doesn't have to be like the normal spells where you just cast a bunch of times and it becomes permanent. It doesn't have to be like Hex or Major Image where a higher level spell slot makes it permanent. It could be anything. So I'm really curious to see what we ended up using as conditions.
Totally forgot about like throwing in the materials needed if it had a material component.
Ooh,
well, I had an idea, so
yeah,
that when we get there.
That's not something that's strictly necessary. Like that's very fiddly in terms of the balance, and in most cases doesn't matter. So
that's what we do here is we just have ideas, you know, and we just throw those ideas at the wall. So
boy, did I throw an idea at the
wall. We're just throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks, and in this case, what sticks is a permanent spell. So. For my first entry today, I've got Bolster, a first-level abjuration spell available to bards, clerics, and paladins. Casting time of 1 action, range of touch. Components are verbal, somatic, and material, specifically an agate worth 50 gold pieces and various unguents. A duration of 1 hour, normally. The target gains 1d6 temporary hit points. If you cast the spell every day for 30 days, targeting the same creature, then on the first casting on the 30th day, the agate is consumed, the duration becomes until dispelled, and instead of gaining temporary hit points, the creature's current hit points and hit point maximum are both increased by 6.
Oh, interesting.
So what this is at first level, and I mean, this, in hindsight, I probably should have included a provision for, cast at higher levels, increases the effect. But that wasn't what we were going for this week, so I didn't really focus on that. But this is worse than Aid when cast just once. It's a lower duration, it is only single target, and you're getting a variable number of hit points between 1 and 6 instead of the flat 5. But if you're willing to expend the first level spell slot every day for 30 days, targeting the same creature, that creature gets a permanent increase to their HP that, of course, can be dispelled eventually, but it's a little bit of a boost, which if you're talking about, say, a low-level wizard, you might be really happy about getting an extra 6 hit points.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
My worry with it is that it for 30 days is a lot to only get 6 health points, even if it is low level.
Well, and that's kind of the tension that I was feeling trying to design a low-level spell that can become permanent, because there's a very fine line between effects that are worthwhile for a first-level spell slot and effects that aren't broken when they become permanent without expending more than a first-level spell slot, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that 30 days for the 6 hit points is kind of a lot of investment. And I think that's fine. Like for Temple of the Gods, almost nobody is actually going to be able to cast it in the same place every day for a year to get that permanent effect. But the fact that it's an option and that you can say, okay, during our downtime, I'm going to cast this on the party wizard every day for a month just to give him that little bit of extra health, you know?
30 days is a long down, especially
Yeah.
for early levels. Although I don't know how people do down a lot, but typically I
Well,
like to ramp up downtime.
well, and also the 30 days could be, I don't know, 15 days, 20 days, 10 days. I think 10 might be a little bit too low, but
Really, because I was thinking week.
I don't know. A week can go by really fast, especially if you're doing like, so like in your campaign, we will often spend 3 or 4
Yeah.
days just traveling between 2 cities. And so it's like, okay, I get 4 casts of this in while we're traveling, and then I only need to remember to cast it 3 more times once we arrive at our destination.
I mean, the other boon to that is that you also have to have the 50 gold piece like thing. So if it's a week and you're traveling somewhere for a week, you can prep for that and only get 6 hit points at a lower level,
That's
and
fair.
have
Well, and also
to spend the 50 gold.
well, and 50 gold at first level. It's
Yeah.
not nothing. Like
No,
it's
it's like
pretty,
half your gold for some people, more
Yeah.
than monks.
it's pretty cheap as far as spell components go, but it's not exactly
It's following your screen right now on Twitch, Shawn.
I know that was intentional.
Okay.
I looked up aid because that's the most analogous spell to this. So the point I was going to make is that I personally don't think. The only reason I think 30 days might be a big buy-in is because the D6 that you get is temporary hit points instead of just maximum hit points at the get-go. Because it's maximum hit points, then it's more valuable, and it might just be something you passively do every day anyway because it's a valuable thing to do for your character. And looking at aid, it is a second level spell. It targets 3 creatures and gives them 5 each. So I think a variable 1d6, which could just be 1 HP for maximum hit points at first level, wouldn't be too powerful, and actually may even just be weak until you get that 30-day mark. So I think like the big thing holding this thing back is that it is temporary hit points as opposed to max. If it was max hit points, I don't think the 30-day cost would even be that big of a deal because it's just something that why wouldn't I just cast this every day anyway? Unless there's some pressing matter.
But mine only has a duration of 1 hour.
That is true. The 1 hour does kind of hold it back there. I think maybe it could go with not being 1 hour.
You think it could? Well, I wanted to be able for it to be differentiable from aid in more than just one way. So I wanted it to be shorter duration, and I wanted it to be temporary hit points unless it's going to be permanent. So if I'm keeping those two things distinct from aid, do you think I could just maybe increase the number of hit points, maybe from 1d6 to like 2d4?
2d4 would be a pretty good amount of temporary hit points. I think heroism first level. That's 5, 8, or that's charisma hit points every round. Temporary hit points. Let me look at heroism real quick. I'm pretty sure it's for first level. Oh, that's not.
I believe it is.
Heroism is first level. I was looking at it.
It is first level? Okay. Yeah, so heroism already gives charisma, which would be for most characters, bard and paladin, probably 3 or 4 for a bard, maybe 2 or 3 for a paladin every round. So I think 2d4 would not be broken for a single target thing that only lasts on one creature and is static. It doesn't revitalize itself like heroism does.
So on the other hand, heroism is concentration where this isn't.
That too.
I like 2d4 a little bit better.
I do too, I think.
2d4, and then I would be happy with the 30-day thing if even the health was 8 instead of 6 because it's max.
Yeah. 2d4 I think also feels better to me too because if you roll 1 d6, it's going to feel like you wasted the spell anyway. At least 2 feels more justified.
Yeah, especially for a first level spell slot. It's like, I only have 7 HP to start with, so 2 is like something, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
That's exactly what I was thinking. A 1 on that die would feel terrible for this one.
Okay, so yeah, 2d4, or maybe, what if it's like d4 plus your casting mod?
Yeah, if you wanted to get rid of the just 1 casting mod, you could always go with... You could keep a d6 if you did casting mod, I think.
I don't know, I think d6 plus casting mod... I don't know. So like,
I think temporary
standard,
hit points aren't as scary as people think they are.
so standard array at first level, you're gonna have a 3 in your casting stat if you're a bard or a cleric, and maybe like a 2 in it if you're a paladin. So
Mhm.
like then we're talking between 4 and 9 temporary hit points for bards or clerics,
It's
and
pretty
then for
nice.
paladin between 3 and 8. That's that's good but not busted. And like for paladins, a spell slot is a much bigger investment than it is for a cleric or a bard. You know what? I think you're right. Maybe D6 plus spellcasting mod could work, and then for the permanent effect, keep it as 6 or just 6 plus casting mod. Then
I think 6 plus
Yeah.
casting mod.
okay,
I'd
just
say
give
just
it like
just a flat 10.
flat 10.
Yeah, I'd be cool with that. I think 6 is low, but so
I think
I'm cool
I
with
think
any increase to that.
10 would fit better with with almost paralleling with 8 because 8's a flat 5, and then this would be a flat 10.
Yeah.
Plus 10 is just like a round number. It's good for all classes.
Yeah.
If a barbarian gets a 10, for instance, they're not going to complain.
True. Well, and
even with their health being so high.
Yeah.
well, and at 10, like you don't. Those 10 hit points are still going to be helpful even at later levels. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. 10's still a good chunk.
The one thing that holds me on this one is just because this does likely mean that everyone in your party is going to have an additional 10 hit points. Because they're
At some
all going
point,
to be.
yeah.
The party's probably going to think the 50 gold cost is worth it because it only consumes the component one time. So if you get that 4-person party, that's 200 gold, the whole party invests. And then after 30 days, they all have 10 more HP. Because it's only a first level spell slot, and you can cast it on multiple times per day if you want.
right, yeah. So like that's the thing. By the time you've got 2 or 3 first level spell slots, you're only going to take like probably 60 days to get everybody covered with this.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Which is, it's a pretty good like party wide buff. But at a certain point, it almost kind of feels like you're looking through your spells as a cleric. This almost feels like a necessary spell for a while, especially the cleric that could just swap their spell out for something else. Same with paladin even. Once I have all of my 10 HP on everybody, I'm just going to use different spell from now on. I don't have to worry about preparing this spell ever again. And it's just that flat buff. But I mean, that's just the nature of permanent spells anyway. But like this
It can be
will
dispelled eventually.
it could be dispelled eventually, which is definitely a big deal. If they run into one anti-magic field, or if they run well, I guess anti-magic field does anti-magic field dispel spells or just suppress them?
I think it just suppresses them. I don't think it actually dispels them automatically, but let me double check that.
I'm gonna pull it up on the stream here because I know that's part of the field.
Okay, spells are suppressed in the sphere, but the time it spends suppressed counts against its duration. Yeah, so it would begin affecting them again after they leave the anti-magic field, but it would be suppressed while they're in it. And I mean, if they're up against someone who knows dispel magic,
Yeah.
and for example is using it to dispel
Haste.
I don't know, fly or something, you get to dispel any number of effects.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they won't have to roll to remove this.
Yeah.
Unlike Hero's Feast, for instance, which they would have to roll for.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would be nice and a little bit strong, even with the 10 for like early game, like 1 to 3 levels, and then nice for like 4 to 7, and then after that, you're facing people that like might have dispel magic or stuff that can get rid of it at that point.
But also, most first level parties aren't spending 30 days at level 1.
Yeah, that.
Like by the
Also-
time 30 days of. Oh, sorry, go on.
I would say also at low levels, like up until like level 5, you still have pretty limited spell slots, even as a full caster. Because at level 5, you still only have 4, 3, 2, I believe, for first, second, and third level spells.
That sounds right, yeah.
And if it's a normal adventuring day, you're going to probably be using a lot of those spells because you don't really have a lot of other features as a full caster. You're probably focusing most on your casting, especially at lower levels.
Yeah.
So it would still be a big opportunity cost to focus on doing this. Likely the party's going to focus, like maybe their tank. Either their tank or their squishiest party member is going to get this spell priority.
Right. You're either going to focus on either upping the HP of the highest HP character or upping the HP of the lowest HP character.
Yeah. And if it's the highest, it's not that big of a deal because it's like they're already going to be taking shit. And this is only like one attack's worth of damage. And then if they're the lowest, that does make it a little bit stronger, but they're still probably going to be the squishiest regardless.
Right.
I like that it's not concentration, though.
That is convenient. Aid's also not concentration. It lasts for 8 hours.
I remember, I think Shawn said something about it last week. Why wouldn't a wizard be able to get this spell? I'm curious about.
My reasoning about keeping it from wizards is that this is basically, but not quite, a healing spell.
Yeah.
And wizards generally don't get access to healing. Like, wizards can get access to things like lesser restoration, I think, but like I don't think they should get healing.
Do they not get like temporary hit point stuff?
Other than
they get like vampire touch.
Yeah, they get vampire touch, and I think that they might get no, Armor of Agathis is only warlocks. Yeah, so I'm not sure that wizards get much access to temporary hit points.
They don't. Really, the only big healing spell they get is life transference.
Right.
As far as transference, or not transference, temporary or regular HP. But yeah, generally healing spells do not go to sorcerers and wizards. Because sorcerers, well, unless you're the fucking divine sorcerer, that's a whole other bag.
Yeah, but then you've got the whole cleric spell list at your mercy.
And by healing, you're like meaning specifically anything to do with health, because temporary hit points to me isn't really healing. I can see it on the max health, but
it's kind of treated the same in terms of which spell lists it goes on. So like I could see this maybe going on like the druid or ranger spell list because they get access to healing effects.
Yeah.
But
okay, I was just curious.
Another thing with wizards is that at higher levels they get permanent spells, and this could be one of the permanent spells, which isn't necessarily super broken, because temporary hit points also don't up someone if they're down. Because your hit points are still 0 even if you get temporary hit points. So it wouldn't be super busted if this became a permanent thing, but I still think flavor-wise it makes sense for this to be, especially like the idea of bolstering your allies. Not really something I think of wizard first and foremost. Wizard, I think like, the strange mystic arts that are like utility spells that are like, a different kind of support.
I think of I guess I just think of temporary hit points as more as like a shield almost, as opposed to any sort of like healing.
Yeah, one this thing, the Abjuration Wizard's Arcane Ward is basically temporary hit points. It's not actually that, but it basically is.
And they do get stuff that is like defense based, like mage armor and shit like that.
Right, so like mage armor and
Bolster just kind of, I don't know.
They don't get a lot of
coming from with the.
They don't get a lot of stuff that give other people bonuses though. Their mage armors and stuff. I believe fire shields also to yourself.
That's true.
They don't get even sanctuary wizards. So most of the stuff that they get is for themselves as opposed to other people, which I think is like the big thing, because they're squishy. I don't see anything necessarily busted with wizards getting it. It's just for me, and I think this is going to be kind of a subjective thing. It doesn't seem to fit into flavor with how the wizard spell list looks, but that's definitely kind of a subjective thing, because flavor is more or less subjective. It's like what you're picturing for like a wizard. Because like, for instance, like if you're coming from World of Warcraft to D&D and you think that like the rogue's going to play completely differently than how it does in D&D, for instance, like that whole flavor gets all messed up because that word has a lot of things to it. There's a whole generation growing up in Harry Potter where wizard means a completely different thing than someone who watches Lord of the Rings or plays D&D. Watching Lord of the Rings, your idea of a wizard would be different because like Gandalf is kind of like a cleric than he is like an actual wizard. But
because Gandalf's powers are mainly divine in their source.
Yeah, and he's not like sitting down memorizing things. That's all different fiction than Lord of the Rings. I think this is a fun one. I do think the biggest thing would just be getting that to D6 plus.
D6 plus casting mod.
And then just
I think that's totally fair.
Hit points.
Yeah, and I think compared to heroism, it's definitely not busted. In fact, it might be underpowered even. But then with the 30-day, I think the 30-day thing really puts this on the worth it for a first level spell category.
Right, yeah. Well, and
I dig
honestly,
it.
it's worth it
I
as a
like
first
it.
level spell, but not until you're a couple levels higher than that.
Yeah,
Because you're not going to be wanting to spend like your one of two spell slots in a day to do this, right? Like you're probably
Yeah.
going to want to wait until you have some other things available. So I really don't see you pulling off this 30-day thing until you're at least like level 3.
yeah, not the 30-day thing, but it is still a nice spell to even if you had to
It-
be able to cast on like low heart health target or whatever.
yeah, exactly. That's the thing. I think it's still worthwhile, even if it is worse than heroism,
Yeah,
when you're just doing it as a one-off thing. But the 30-day possibility leaves it open as something bigger that you can do at higher levels.
I like it.
The one thing that I'll say is just a little bit of wording here. I definitely don't think this quotation thing is something that wizards would ever use. It's very not natural language. I was looking at some of their stuff, and they usually just say the spell lasts until dispelled, as opposed to duration becomes blank. But that's just a
Yeah, usually it's
a wizard's thing. I mean, it's very clear what the spell's supposed to do.
Right, yeah. This is
Like
just one of those situations where I disagree with wizards in terms of their typesetting and how they format these sorts of things.
Yeah, definitely.
I know mine's not perfect, but I definitely like researched a ton of spells to try to get it as accurate as I could.
Yeah,
Sure.
it's interesting to like go through them and realize, well, there's actually quite a few more spells than I thought that become permanent, or at least until dispelled. Because I just remembered that Major Image does it too, and they just does it from being cast from a higher spell slot like Hex does. Yeah, I think we've pretty thoroughly covered this one. We can move on over to Zach's spell here. Zach, if you go
boy.
ahead. Just read the entire thing from top to bottom, starting with the name, and then all the spell stuff, and then word for word. I noticed that most of the spell's effect is in the higher level block, which is interesting. So go ahead.
Yeah, it's a little bit out of order from my side as well, but it's called Giving Tree. It's a second level transmutation spell. Casting time of 1 minute. Range touch. Components verbal, somatic, and material. Duration 1 minute, or that's supposed to be 1 hour. Sorry.
Oh well.
And this would go to clerics, druids, and rangers. You focus on a tree you can touch. The tree becomes blessed for 1 hour. Anyone within 60 feet of the tree for 1 hour gains temporary hit points equal to 5 plus the spellcasting modifier. And all of that's pretty simple, and everything at the higher levels is complicated.
Interesting.
At higher levels, if you cast a spell using a spell slot of 4th level, the duration of the bless is 10 minutes. Anyone within 60 feet of the tree for 1 hour gains temporary hit points equal to 10 plus the spellcasting modifier. If you cast it at 6th level, the duration becomes 8 hours, and anyone within 60 feet of the tree for 1 hour gains temporary hit points equal to 10 plus the spellcasting modifier plus the spell level.
Oh shit.
And if you use the spell at 8th level, it's supposed to be just 8th level, not higher. The duration of the spell is 24 hours. Anyone within 60 feet of the tree for 1 hour gains temporary hit points equal to 15 plus the spellcasting modifier plus the spell level. And if you use it at 9th level, the bless lasts until it is dispelled. Anyone within 60 feet of the tree for 1 hour gains temporary hit points equal to 20 plus the spellcasting modifier plus the spell level plus 1 for every year that the bless is on that tree.
Interesting. So the tree becomes more powerful as time passes.
Yep, as if the bless is on it for like a whole year, it's only 1 hit point every year. But if you have a tree that has been blessed for 30 years, I was thinking like Druid's Grove type places and stuff like that.
Right.
It's a really cool
yeah.
idea. There's definitely a lot of things you could do with the language here to make it less bulky. But
Yeah, I just tried to keep it consistent.
I like the idea behind this. One clarification though, it says anyone 60 feet of the tree for 1 hour, so they have to stay for an entire hour to get it, or within.
Basically, I was trying to make it short rest time. You have to take a short rest in the tree.
So you're like traveling in the forest. Your druid touches a tree nearby, and you guys short rest by that tree, basically.
Honestly, you could just say anyone who finishes a short rest, like while this blessing is on the tree, like
Yeah.
it does say if you wanted to be like essentially taking a short rest, you could just say if you finish a short rest during the duration, then
Yeah, I'm not sure that any spells did that or not, so I just stuck with the 1 hour.
there aren't spells, but there are class features like Song of Rest does that.
Yeah.
You can do a similar thing. You could kind of copy some of the verbiage from that to make it work. I love the idea of this though. The idea of like making a tree, just designating a tree as base, like in tag.
Yeah.
This is base.
Yeah.
And I was thinking,
sort of making it like a locus of healing.
Yeah. And I was thinking druid because obviously ranger because they outdoors, and cleric because I mean there's certain cleric like clergies that'll like follow a tree or something like that. Plus it's temporary hit points.
I think the classes make perfect sense.
I did the thing at the bottom, the
example table.
The table, yeah.
Just for
assuming you had a
clarification.
5 spellcasting modifier, just to show kind of how strong it would be at each cast. If you cast it at second level, you get 10. This is assuming you have a 5 spellcasting modifier. You would get at second level, you would get 10 temporary hit points. If you cast it at fourth level, you would get 15. Sixth level, 21. Eighth level, 28, and then ninth level, 34 plus 1 for every year.
So one, I mean, again, this is just a wording nitpick, but for the first line of at higher levels, you said that if you use a fourth level spell slot, the duration is only 10 minutes. Is that supposed to be like 4 hours or something? Because it's...
yeah, I copy pasted that from something, so I'll have to adjust that.
Okay, all right. I figured that it was just like a copy paste mess up or something. Honestly,
yeah, I'd probably just change that to like 4 hours.
Yeah, because you needed to be longer than the second level version, but not as long as the sixth level version. So that kind of hems you into the 4 hour range. Yeah, honestly, I like this a lot. The fact that, I mean, it's at second level, it's, I don't know, it's stronger than aid, but not by like too terribly much, and also it's got enough restrictions on it. Like aid lasts for 8 hours, but it also only takes an action to cast, whereas while this technically only takes a minute to cast, it basically takes an hour to cast, in that you need a full hour to get the effects of it. So the fact that it's stronger than aid, I don't think is a big deal at second level.
Yeah, this was from, I don't know if you guys talked about this last week or Adam talked about this specifically at some point. The time that I took to cast, I didn't want it to be able to be cast in combat, but I wanted it, so 1 minute was enough to have it not be able to be cast in combat, but you still have to wait the hour inside the tree range anyway.
Honestly, the fact that you have to take a short rest, essentially have to take a short rest, really means that the casting time is more like 1 hour, but it doesn't mean that you don't get the short rest when you do it. So
I also wanted them to get the short rest.
I would say I would probably just drop the spell level addition and simply just make it 5 for every level above second. Simply because it's a little bit clunky, like with having to go through each individual spell and like this one does this one, this one does this one, this one does this one. And 5 per level, I think, would achieve similar results. Because in this case, for instance, if it goes from 5 at second level, at ninth level, it's going to be 40. Right?
Yeah. It'd be 40.
Yeah,
no,
it's 40.
pretty... No, I have it set so that it's just...
No, I'm not saying that's how it is. I'm saying if you did 5 per level. Instead of doing spell level addition.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. So it would be effectively the same numbers. It'd be a little bit stronger at some levels to do 5 per level. I personally do like the +1 for every year it's blessed. Though that one is a little strange.
That was my big, like, what I wanted to do with it.
That one's a little rough. I might say that instead of doing 1 per every year, just do a bonus for every year that it's continued, because at a certain point in a town, you might get like 200 temporary hit points, which might be a bit much. If this tree, especially since it's such a low level spell, if this spell just exists, there's not really like, just think about like building a world. What druid grove's not going to have a tree like this that hasn't been there for like 100 years?
But on the other hand, you need someone capable of casting 9th level spells to make it permanent.
That is true. That is true. The ninth level thing does kind of hold that back. But like, are we assuming that there's not many places in the world where there's not been a druid that had ninth level spells? There's just going to be some trees that give you some crazy ass bonuses, which isn't bad. This isn't going to be like the middle of town square or just outside of the fucking woods of, buttfuck nowhere. Well, maybe it is. Druids like to be kind of hidden away in the forest.
Well, but I mean, on the other hand, even if you do find like a 200-year-old tree that has this enchantment on it, you can't stay there forever. It's unlikely that everything you need to fight is within a day's travel of this tree. Like, it does sort of give you a 24 hours worth of travel safe zone, but temporary hit points only last until you finish a long rest.
Yeah. That's another thing that I might adjust, is because you do need to rest there for an hour. I just make them last into the long. I'll just let them be whatever. I wouldn't give the an hour, 8 hours, 10 minutes, whatever, like limit on how long they last. I would just let them be.
Let it be what?
Temporary hit points always go with at a long rest. Unless
the bless on the tree lasts that long.
Oh, I misunderstood. I see.
So if you bless the tree for like the 8 hour one, you can
come back to it for another short rest.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I misunderstood.
What you said, you would cap the year tree thing?
Yeah, I'd probably just make it that, like, as long as you maintain it year after year, or like once per year, if you cast on the tree, it does like a static buff. Because I'm assuming what you mean by this is that you would have to continually cast a 9th level spell.
That's not my reading.
So just any. Just every year it passively goes.
Yeah, once the year-round mark has hit and the spell has been on the tree for that year, the temporary hit points just go up by 1.
I see.
So yeah, if the spell was on a tree 200 years, then yes, it would be 200 hit points. But
trees get old, man.
I know.
I'm just thinking, like, this spell is a lot more interesting when you think about how it's going to play in your world. I don't necessarily see this is still a good spell to take as a druid, but it's not like super comparable to like some of the other like health giving stuff. And it's definitely a lot more powerful when you think of like what's place in the world is.
Well,
and I'm just thinking that
I'm not sure that there's any amount of scaling with time that doesn't just break if you assume that other people in the world have cast this spell at some point. Like, as much as I like the idea of like, oh, you get more hit points the longer it's been on the tree, I don't think there's any like amount where you could tune that down to where it's not going to get truly absurd at some age that a tree can reach.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say that perhaps instead of doing +1 per year, you have 1 for 10 years, or 1 for 1 year, 1 for 10 years, 1 for 100, and 1 for 1,000.
Okay, I like that.
1,000 might be much, because not a lot of trees actually get to 1,000 years old.
I'd put 1,000 in there. I mean, druids.
Well, and honestly, if you're doing that for milestones instead of just for every year, you could probably just have it be an additional +5.
Yep.
Because it's like, it'll be 40 at 9th level, but after it's lasted for a year, it'll be 45, and then at 10 years, it'll be 50. Like,
yeah, I like that. I was trying to get creative with the how many hit points, but I think just 5 every time should work fine.
Yeah. Plus, that makes it a little bit easier if a DM does want to put this in their game, which I think this spell like asks a DM to do that if they have a druid grove. It'd be easier for the DM then to be like, okay, how long exactly has this tree been here? They'd be like, it's been there for between 100 and 1,000 years, so you get that bonus.
Yeah, I like that.
That's the thing. It cuts down on bookkeeping, gives you nice round numbers, and still lets you scale it as the spell effect has aged.
Yeah,
so I like that.
But otherwise, I think this is a really cool. I think this spell, more than anything, is just really cool for like putting it in the world and flavor. Just like the idea of making a tree a safe haven It fits
Well,
really well with the Druid Grove feel.
Well, and
I like that a
this
lot.
spell just sort of it really begs for a story to be told, you know?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
as much as I may have liked my spell, like it didn't really tell a story. It was just, yeah, you give your friends some temporary hit points. But this like really has a story I can feel building around it. Like
I don't know. I
Yeah.
could see your spell also, not as much as this one, but like you just meet this guy, right? He's a veteran, but he was a veteran who was just like he was able to take more hits than everybody else. But the reason it was like imagine a Revenant situation in the movie The Revenant from with like Leonardo DiCaprio. He got fucked up by this bear, and we thought he was dead. He comes back stronger than ever because on his journey out there, he met a shaman that used this spell on him. Like,
right.
I think there's still a lot of good potential to place that spell in your world.
Absolutely.
I don't think it begs it as easily as this spell does.
Yeah, I loved this spell for the idea of thinking not only what the players could do with it, because I mean, you're not spending a lot of time where you'll be like in 1 year around a tree or something like that, but in the world, like what the DM can do with this spell.
Hell yeah.
And I like the adjustments to it. And also, I'm a sucker for temporary hit points. I don't think there's enough in the game, honestly. So I love that Adam made one too for that.
Yeah.
No, I'm also a big fan of temporary hit points. I mean, as you've both seen with the Juggernaut, like I love giving out temporary hit points like candy. Like
I was concerned about how many temporary hit points I was giving because I don't know how many higher level spells actually give temporary hit points, but I didn't want to like over cap that until obviously the 1 year thing. But
well, what I'll say is that aid gives 5 to 3 people and scales 5 more per level beyond seconds, so you're not breaking any fucking bones with 5 temporary hit points per level.
Yeah.
So honestly, your spell could be a little bit stronger if you just. I think if you got rid of the spell level modifier and just replaced it with every level beyond seconds additional 5 temporary hit points, you'll be perfectly fine. And then 9th level, you do the special year thing. I think that'll be perfectly fine.
Cool. Yeah, I like that. I'll probably start it at 10.
Yeah, that could work too, because it is temporary hit points versus and you need an hour to actually do it. So you can only first of all, you can only do this during a short rest, and you can't be like in a dungeon or you know, in the middle of like a battle in a cityscape or a plains or something. You really need to be like in the forest or something. Basically, it's like we're going to a forest. I'm a cleric. I'm a druid. Let me prepare this spell because this might become very useful. And I like that. I like the idea of just having spells that you can, without the DM's like direct motivation, just be like, okay, I know because of this situation, I should prepare this spell. And this is one of those spells where it's just like, we're going to a forest. This might be very useful.
Yeah, I love the scaling on this too, for like, because I'm thinking about us going into like war right now in our campaign, and like being able to cast this at like 6th level on like a tree before we started. That gives you like 20 temporary hit points for the whole battle. And the thing about that is, if it was at 6th level, it would be for 8 hours. So if we needed to, if like our troops could come back and then like get it again, and like so that's why I like adding the extra time as well.
Yeah, just having like a safe haven you can go back to for the end of the day.
Right, yeah.
That's cool.
I was debating at 9th level making it cost something, but I'm not sure I need to with the spell. Like some sort of cost.
I mean, I don't think this spell gives any kind of like fantastic permanent or crazy buff that needs to have the material component removed.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm not even sure that you would need, like, you might want to have a material component that costs, but like I don't think it would need to be consumed. Like,
okay.
Yeah.
I forgot to do the material components just
honestly, for the most part,
sap was one that I had an idea for.
I think you could just say that like it costs tree sap, and then like I don't know, special oils costing X gold pieces that aren't consumed, so it's fine.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, yeah, I think this one just needs to be like consolidated, and I think the concept really works conceptually, and I think it's just a fun idea for the world. Okay.
Yeah. One of many druid spells I'm sure that I'll create.
Oh hell yeah, dude. Let's get them some more shit. I feel like a lot of druid, like the majority of druid spells, are basically just there for flavor reasons, because they don't have like a ton of like game breaking battle spells, but they have a ton of like, okay, yeah, obviously a druid should be able to do this. I think this would be one of them. For
Yeah.
sure. All right. Let's go ahead and look at my spell here. You know, I forgot that a chat existed. I've just been talking straight with you guys. I've never looked in the chat at all. Group stream won't work on my Chromecast. Wonders why I said.
What cost?
All right. So my spell, unfortunately, has nothing to do with health or temporary hit points.
Damn you, Shawn.
Got off theme.
My spell's an illusion spell. It's called Decorative Illusion. First level illusion, Bard, Ranger, Sorcerer, Warlock, and Wizard. Casting time 1 action, range 30 feet, components, verbal somatic material, and the classic illusion component, a bit of fleece. Duration 1 hour. You create an image of an object or surface within range that lasts for the duration. The image can't create sound, light, smell, or any other sensory effect. The illusion ends if you dismiss it as an action. If you create an image of an object such as a chair, muddy footprints, or a small chest that's just copy and pasted for minor illusion, it must be no longer than 1 foot cubed, so smaller than minor illusion. If you create a surface, however, such as a wall, grassy ground, or the surface of water, it must be no larger than 10 foot square. The image can't create sound. Wow, I repeated myself. Great. The image can't create sound, light, smell, or heat, but it can be physically interacted with in a limited capacity. Things can pass through the image, but the image animates based on its environment and your understanding of the material you're mimicking, such as a surface of water moving with the wind or rippling to a touch. However, the animation cannot deviate more than an inch from the image's initial position. If a creature uses its action to examine the image, typical illusion stuff, they make an investigation check with DC, they can figure out it's an illusion. And then finally, the permanency. If you cast a spell every hour for 8 hours to create the same image in the same location, the spell lasts until dispelled. So it's a very, very, very small illusion effect that's really easy to make permanent. It doesn't really have any direct effect on the environment. It's basically only used for decoration or deception. So decoration, you can make all kinds of knickknacks in a 1 foot cube that you can like fill your room with and stuff. You got 8 hours to spare. Every hour cast a spell for 8 hours. It's there permanently. But the big things I am thinking you might use this spell for are false walls or false floors or even false ceilings. I gave it to Rangers specifically because I was thinking of covering a pit trap with this. And I'm just thinking like, there's no particular reason why a Ranger, I don't see a reason why this being permanent would be a problem for the Ranger when a Ranger can likely make a pitfall trap with the materials that are around and make it believable and be there permanently anyway. So spending a first level spell slot for 8 times a day is a huge cost for effectively something that you can do by yourself regardless. This spell is basically just for flavor.
Well, especially since a Ranger doesn't even have 8 spell slots in a day until they're level 9.
Yeah.
So this is the thing, for Ranger, they can't do this until level 9. Bard, Sorcerer, and Wizard can't do this until level 5, I think. And then Warlocks can do it from level 1, because you can just cast, short rest, cast, short rest, cast, short rest.
Yeah. Honestly, this spell is not necessarily even meant to be a spell that players even want to take. There's definitely some interesting things you could do with it, some shenanigans you could play around with this. But not necessarily much that you can't already do with like Minor Illusion or Silent Image, for instance. Silent Image is already a first level spell, and you can move it around freely. This spell is for decoration, basically. It's for you to deck your place out. Because the things animate, unlike other spells, you don't have to put your mental thought into like, oh, how do I need this to react to this situation? It just kind of does it naturally.
Right. I'm gonna be honest. This was one of the ideas that I tried to make work. Because I was originally thinking of either an illusion or like some variant of creation for like, okay, those seem like obvious things that could become permanent, but I just couldn't come up with a good way to make it work. And honestly, this feels about right for what a low level illusion should be able to do, but in a way that you can make it permanent. It's not a
Yeah.
detailed effect. It's not a particularly convincing effect, but it's something that you can use in a pinch and you can make it permanent.
Yeah.
I think this hits all of the notes that we were looking for.
Yeah, it seems like a good middle ground because I was just looking at Silent Image because I was kind of curious as to if there was any spells that kind of did a similar thing. Like I'm sure there was, but it doesn't seem like it steps on Silent Image's toes at all, really.
Yeah, no, because Silent Image you can move around freely as you want it to. That's really a spell that's meant to like create a scenario that people believe, as opposed to like kind of just like this environmental effect that this one does. Then Major Image is 3rd level, but Major Image is a much bigger object. It can be permanent, but only at 6th level. But you can do so much more with that. It has smells, it has sound. It's much more convincing. And really, there's no reason why a creature would doubt Major Image unless they touch it or see what should be its ramifications to the world.
Yeah, this is a great
Go ahead.
This is a great first level spell that could end up tricking a higher level party, even, or at least like a mid-range level party, where like it's just something simple that like a floor that was placed that was an illusion that they didn't notice.
Right. Well, this is great for illusions or things that you would have no reason to doubt.
Like, yeah.
All of the uses I could see for this are extremely utility and niche. Like I said, you can make false walls. One thing that I thought of is like if you want to hide a murder scene, you could cover all the blood on the floor with just clean floor.
Interesting.
And there's no reason that they necessarily even doubt that, unless like they touch the blood and slip or something, like, or if they imagine landing on a clean floor and you go up and there's blood all over you and you don't know where it came from. I just thought that stuff would be really neat. Basically, this spell is the spell used for deceptive NPCs. And I could see someone like Valerie, for instance, in my campaign using this. Someone who's not built at all for combat. But meant to like do more subtle things.
Or even just a wizard decking out a house, like some sort of wizard that you're like chasing down, or
I can see a wizard's tower being full of stuff like this. Like false walls, but also false corridors, like something that looks like it's going to be a corridor and then it's just a fake wall, like in the fucking Roadrunner cartoons. Like,
I didn't even think of that. The first things that I thought of immediately were the pit traps and the false walls of like ones that you could walk through, but making it a wall that looks like it's not a wall that you could walk down. It's pretty great.
Another fun thing you can do with it too is like you can do some trippy stuff. Like nothing says the surface of water has to be on the ground. You can make a wall surface of water. So it's like it's just like all like
a waterfall or something.
Yeah, like a waterfall or even lava. If you want to go Minecraft, make a lava fall. So
that might throw some alarms off. The lack of sound and sensory effects like heat and stuff would be dead giveaways.
Well, that's the thing. So for like waterfall, it's like, okay, I don't hear it crashing, but like if you made it look like it's just a hallway that has been somehow magically filled with water, then it's like, well, I don't hear anything, but also it's magic. Like it's obviously filled with water somehow. Like
and it's great. I mean, like those are the types of tricky things that you can sometimes get away with DMing, where you say something like, and you see a wall of water, and like you don't say anything about it, like making noise, and if nobody asks you, then like. And then you're just like, I never mentioned that it was like running water sound. Because normally you'd be like, you walk into this room where you hear running water, like.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. Or you feel the mist of it like hitting the ground. Like.
Yeah, what I really wanted from this spell is I just want permanent illusions that don't require 6th level spell slots. Like I just want to have a cool looking room or like decking out, like my party has a fort, just deck out the fucking rooms in the fort with like these cool ass illusions, like,
but not be a 13th level wizard to do it.
yeah. Why do I have to be like beyond human comprehension of power to be able to just have some LEDs in my room or something, like?
It's great. I would almost argue being 2nd level. Just thinking of some of the things you can do for a low level wizard, that it is like starting to get into like fake walls, because if it's all permanent, like 8 hours, and I mean they're sitting at their home all the time. Like,
Well, but again, a wizard can't even do this until level 5 because they don't have 8 spell slots to use.
oh, that's true. Got it.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's the thing. It may only be first level. It may only be a first level spell, but a wizard doesn't even have 8 slots to use until they're level 5. I guess with Arcane Recovery, they could do it at like level 4, probably. But
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I think, Arcane Recovery, that's like the earliest they can do it. Plus,
Yeah.
like, I mean, there's not a lot of scenarios where making it permanent's any better than just making it last for 1 hour. Like, if you're using it for, like, you know, a pit trap or, like, to hide your party or something, an hour is usually enough to suffice in those scenarios. Really, I just wanted the permanency effect for downtime. I just want to deck shit out and have fun.
Yeah, and honestly, an hour is a good time just for like party purposes because I feel like there's too many illusion spells that don't last long enough sometimes to like
Yeah.
be able to set up traps and stuff like that.
yeah,
Yeah, I was looking at Minor Illusion lasts for a minute. It's a cantrip. Silent Image lasts, I believe, for 10 minutes and it's
10 minutes,
concentration.
yeah.
And then Major Image, I believe, is I think Major Image might be an hour and it's concentration. But that's third level at that point. It's like, just let me you know, have some passive illusions going on. Like,
Yeah. There are a lot of concentration spells.
Yeah.
So many concentration spells.
I basically just wanted Minor Illusion to be able to last forever, and that's what this cat was trying to approve. Because Minor Illusion can't move. The only big differences between this and Minor Illusion are it can be a surface and it can be animated, and that's about it. And the permanency, obviously, but yeah, I think it accomplishes exactly what I wanted to. I also made it in 30 minutes, so.
Honestly, yeah, I think like I said, it hits all the notes that we wanted, and in a pretty straightforward way. Like it's a low level illusion spell. It's got some pretty severe limitations, honestly, but you can make it permanent at a pretty low cost.
Yeah.
Yeah. Since fake hauls, hell yeah, fake hauls. Do some like Adam
That's
said,
great.
some Roadrunner shit, or technically it's Wile E. Coyote, but make a surface on the wall that looks like a hallway. It's not actually.
Yeah,
Just to
that's
be
great.
a dick.
I could just imagine making like a maze like that or some shit.
Yeah.
Oh my god!
Oh,
a maze
imagine-
with fake
this is the
hallways and fake
biggest-
doors.
This is the biggest Carney spell. You can have a traveling
It absolutely is.
carnival, like,
Yes.
that's awesome.
Hall of Mirrors with this spell in it, like.
Well, in theory as well, because this is a animated spell, I think as the DM I might allow it to be, you can make a mirror. Because it reacts to its environment, so it would react to the light coming at it and reflect, or not literally reflect, because they reflect light, but imitate what it's seeing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that reflections would be in the realm of it just acting according to its nature, essentially. But I don't think that, like, for example, accumulating dust would. So if you were using it as a fake floor, it might be like, oh wait, there's a line here where the dust stops. What's going on?
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
Honestly, that's just a very cool giveaway for like giving like somebody to notice something.
right, yeah, exactly.
All right, that's another thing is that you see this in video games all the time, the fake walls, and all you gotta do is like interact with them, and like maybe they'll look a little bit different, or like there's some sort of hint that it's not real, and you can like hit it and reveal it, or like walk through or whatever.
Or
There's
like
not
the old
really a parallel
cartoons.
ability beyond just like being in dungeons that like are built that way, even though there's no spell that exemplifies that.
Or like those old cartoons where you can tell that a particular cell is on a different layer. So it's like, oh wait, that book's a different color. Like, what's going on here?
They're gonna interact with that book.
Yeah.
I was thinking if you have like the wall done like that and then like blood splatters across the wall, but it like wouldn't go on that part of the wall, so it would abruptly stop where the image
Yeah,
is.
like it would just go through it. Yeah.
Mhm.
Gross.
That's great. So many different ways to use it.
Yeah.
Illusion
That's the
spells.
thing about
Honestly,
illusions.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that's one of the great strengths of the illusion school is that it's the most versatile school of magic. Like,
Yeah. It can't do normally a lot of damage, but like you could do it's limited mostly by your imagination. Alright, I think we've waxed on enough about my spell here. Let's move on to Adam's second spell, and likely the last spell we'll talk about tonight, because
Two
Justin said
spells.
that he would be able to give us some spells before this, but then he didn't give us any, so...
I can't wait.
What a jerk.
I can't
All
wait,
right.
Adam. Start it. Do it. I don't have any patience.
Well, then good news. I have just the spell for you because it's called Patience.
Oh, wow.
This is another first level abjuration spell. This one only available to paladins and rangers.
Interesting.
It's got a casting time of 1 hour and a range of self. It's got verbal and somatic components, and it has an 8-hour duration. Once, during the duration of the spell, you can use a reaction to give yourself advantage on one attack roll, or give an enemy you can see disadvantage on an attack roll against you. If you cast the spell every day for 30 days, then the duration becomes until dispelled, and you can use this reaction again after you finish a long rest.
Interesting.
That's very interesting. So you basically use a spell until you get a class feature.
Exactly, yes. Yeah,
That's really
it's a
curious.
way to use a spell slot to get a class feature, basically. But you must be patient, because it takes a long time to cast, and it takes a long time to get the class feature.
Yeah. Interesting.
I'm down with this one. I think...
Yeah. I like it a lot. My only thing is that the enemy you can see, you might want to put a range on. I don't know.
I don't know, if it's an enemy you can see, and it's only an attack against you, I think that having basically an
it is
unlimited
only
range
against
is
you.
fine. So, because that's the thing,
That's fair.
you're technically giving them disadvantage, but the flavor of the spell, you're not doing anything to the enemy. You're just finally seeing the moment.
Yeah.
Basically what this is you meditate for an hour in the morning, and then once you get to go into like Neo from the Matrix mode and be like slow-mo dodge the arrow or something.
Or
Like,
Nicolas Cage
And
from
it's not
Next.
even guaranteed.
and that's the thing, it's not guaranteed. It's advantage or disadvantage. It's not auto hit, auto miss. It's you get another chance. Like,
Adam, what happens if a ranger swaps this spell after they cast it on themselves until dispelled? Nothing.
that's fine. I mean, yeah, that's fine. Same thing that
Yeah.
happens if you cast a spell at like right before you start a long rest and then swap it out at your
Yeah,
next
like Hero's Feast. Just because your cleric cast Hero's Feast the night before, and they have now swapped out Hero's Feast for something else the next morning, doesn't mean Hero's Feast stops working.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely fine.
Yeah. I like this idea. Though it is interesting to me, just like the thought of like giving yourself effectively a class ability through magic.
It makes me think of the divination wizard, which I
A bit,
personally lately have been in love with.
Yeah.
I love the idea of divination wizards right now, and this isn't exactly that. It's definitely not nearly as strong, but I think it lends to adding a bunch of like really cool role playing aspects you can add to it as well, where like you focused and you see like that archer shooting at you from far away, you give him a disadvantage and then he misses you, and you're like, you knew this moment was coming because you meditated or some shit.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
I'm
Honestly,
trying to
I
think
don't
if
even-
there's a like. First of all, it's curious how you flavor this, because if you flavor this, it could be a different kind of. If you flavor this as like a foresight thing, it'd be more like a divination spell than an abjuration spell.
That's true. Yeah, it totally could be. But honestly, the fact that like I'm calling it abjuration mainly because like it essentially gives you an ability that you can then use. Like
Yeah.
I'm not sure that there's a like abjuration feels the most right just because of things like shield or like I don't know, like I can't honestly think of anything that does anything like this.
Yeah, part of me wants to just call this spell foresight. There's already a
Divination.
spell called foresight,
I feel like this might be divination.
but it's only divination because that's how you're picturing how it works.
Oh, maybe, yeah. I guess so.
Right. That's what I was saying, is that like depending on how you flavor this in your own mind, it could feel like different schools of magic. But
Well, and that's the thing,
this
like-
could have came from different schools of magic. I think
see.
it could have also been a transmutation spell, honestly. If you think about the flavoring differently, like it has some
honestly-
sort of change to you, like maybe it like changes the way that you sense things, for instance.
Yeah, honestly, like if I'd called it something like quick sight instead of patience, like it totally could be transmutation. It's like you give yourself the ability to once during the day speed up your perception of time and do something that you wouldn't normally have been able to do.
I think that would still be divination. I don't see it as transmutation.
Divination is like getting knowledge. Divination is using magic to discern knowledge about the world or creatures or something like that. That's what divination is.
Maybe. Okay, I'm just in love with divination.
That's fair. Divination's
I'm not
awesome.
going to argue with you there. I wish that divination had a lot more going on for it than it does. But I'm actually a huge simp for the entire school of abjuration because I love wards and defenses and things like that.
There's enough abjuration.
Well, and honestly, I didn't write in much flavor here, but kind of the idea of what I was thinking of was basically you meditate for an hour. Like it's got verbal and somatic components.
Yeah, yeah.
That I was planning on just being you sit down and meditate for an hour, and then once during the day, your calmed state of mind pays off, and you're able to either seize an opportunity or defend yourself in a way that you wouldn't have been able to otherwise do.
I love that.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I don't think this is busted for first level either. I think that it's a one-time payoff over a full day. The great thing about this too, also, is that if you're an elf, you can use it at the beginning of the day with no real issue.
Right.
Actually, wait. I don't think that's true, right? Because elves can't. They don't finish a long rest in 4 hours. They just sleep for 4 hours or sleep for 4 hours.
Yeah, they still have to take an 8-hour rest.
If you have a spell slot left from the previous day, you could do that. Because you regain all of those spell slots at the end of the long rest, and you can cast a spell during a rest.
Well, no, because
the rest is...
you can cast a spell during a rest, but if you cast a spell for an hour, you can't.
Yeah.
Oh, right, because I made it a long casting time, you can't.
Yeah, if this was like 10 minutes, it'd be fine. But it says if you walk or fight or whatever for an hour, you lose the your long rest fails essentially.
But also, most adventuring parties have like 9 or 10 hours of time that they fit their 8-hour long rest into.
Yeah,
so,
you always just take an extra hour.
That's the thing. You could just be like, okay, before I go to bed for the night, I spend the hour meditating. But on the other hand, duration is only 8 hours. So then you just have this up while you're asleep.
That's true.
I can see that. That's the thing I was kind of touching on is that like long rests in D&D are more often actually like 9 hours, not 8, because you have like an hour to like prepare your spells. You prepare casters in your party, and because Paladin's a prepared caster, it's gonna be rougher on them. Rangers get a lot more use out of this than the Paladin, unless you want to give your party an additional hour for your Paladin to not only prepare the spell, but then to also cast it.
This though, with a ranger, you would have to like choose to get this spell, and then once you did it for the 30 days, you have this spell that is no longer useful.
Yeah, that is rough.
Until you level up and trade it out.
Yeah.
What was I going to say? Oh, I thought that the time that you spent preparing spells could be part of the long rest. I didn't realize that was additional time after the long rest.
It might be. I might be confusing Pathfinder again with 5e. Because I think Pathfinder is a separate thing.
Let's see.
I mean, we could just pull up the cleric here. Yeah, I think you're right. I think it does say it's part of the long rest.
Adam's signature spells is just going to be short and sweet.
It just says, when you finish a long rest, preparing a new list of cleric spells requires time spent in prayer and meditation, at least 1 minute per spell level for each spell on your list.
Not past it.
It's not necessarily clear here whether that's part of the long rest or something you do after the long rest.
You gain all spell slots when you finish the long rest. You prepare a list of cleric spells that are available to you to cast, choose your spells, blah, blah, blah. You could change your list of spells when you finish a long rest. Preparing your list requires time spent in prayer and meditation at least 1 minute. Yeah, I mean, I would technically say that this would have to be after a long rest.
Oh, interesting.
Because think about like when you're, let's say that you have an ability like the Transmuter Wizard's Transmutation Stone, right? They could change the effect of that when they finish a long rest. But that effect doesn't change at any point during their long rest. So they don't get the privilege to change it until the long rest is complete. And because this says you can change it when you finish a long rest, I think that means that once you complete a long rest, you then have the opportunity to have them swapped. And because it takes additional time to be on top of the long rest.
Honestly, I like this not lasting through a long rest.
Yeah, no, I don't think it should be able to last through a long rest. I'm just I just wasn't sure about the preparing spells thing. But that's the thing. At low levels, it doesn't really matter because it's like, oh, at low levels, I'm preparing 5 first level spells. Okay,
Yeah.
I need 5 extra minutes.
Yeah.
Like,
At higher levels, it'll be closer to an hour. Is how long you prepare your spells, but.
And this is a nice thing, a spell that you could possibly, because I always run into the issue of like not wanting to prepare first level spells when I get to later levels. This is totally a spell that you could prepare because you don't have to concentrate on it. Use it before you go into some sort of fight or something for the day, and it's still useful to you at least.
Uh-oh. It's just him sitting in a spell.
actually, if you're a real dingus, I think that you can
A
spend
real
over.
dingus.
I think that you can spend over 3 hours preparing spells.
Let's see,
It's
for
clear-
cleric, it's going to be 25 spells. If you
Yeah, if you go
Yeah.
like all of the 9th level spells, all of the 8th level spells, and all of the 7th level spells, that'd be a minimum
lot.
of 7 times 25, which is 175, which is 5 minutes less than 3 hours. And that doesn't even account for the 8th and 9th level spells. Yeah, so you could spend 3 hours preparing your spells if for some reason you want to have all of the 7th and 8th and 9th level spells prepared and nothing of any level below that.
I will say that I think most, and maybe this is wrong, maybe it's just from my personal experience and watching people play D&D, I think most tables ignore that and just put it as part of the long rest.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that most tables do. Especially since I'm literally playing a cleric in a campaign right now and I didn't know that. So,
Yeah. I mean, the match is the same thing that prepare spells as well. Right now, we're low enough level where it doesn't really matter, though.
right, that's the thing. We're preparing like 1st, 2nd, and 3rd level spells. So
Yeah.
it's not going to add up to that much time. But
Yeah.
like,
Justice City's sending one in, stall for 3 minutes, and he might
Okay.
be stretching the
Well,
rules a bit.
She already sent it.
He did?
okay, already
well,
sent it? Excellent.
So
Twitch, my
I was going to say,
webcams,
while we're...
my webcam's gonna get a little weird for a second. Bear with me. I gotta get
Thought you
this
said
I
link.
was going to
Switch
say
to
that while we were waiting for him to
webcams.
send it, we could come up with our assignment for next week. But I guess we can just wait for this spell then.
Well, we got the spell up right now already.
Wait,
Um,
I just see the Roll20 page. Okay, there we go. There we go. Okay,
man,
minor
you're really-
regeneration.
you know what you're stretching, Justin? You're stretching the rules of spelling, is what you're stretching. With minor regeneration, you kind of messed up there. But no, we've got Justin's spell. He's coming a little late. Wait, is this even a spell?
Yeah, there's 2 different spells.
Is
The
which
first
spell
one's
is it?
his one from last week.
I know it is,
Oh.
but I don't see anything about being permanent.
This minor regeneration, the permanency is in the 1 minute. It's not really permanent.
Oh wait, is he talking about the regrow body parts bit?
Oh, maybe. I
That
do
is
like that.
technically a permanent
is-
effect
yeah.
that the spell could have.
I do like that effect on this.
Okay,
spell.
yes,
Read it.
that is his intention.
I
So
see.
yeah, let's read this through. So
Yeah.
minor regeneration, a 3rd level transmutation spell available to druids and rangers. Casting time of 1 action, range of touch. Requires material, somatic, and verbal components. The verbal component being a druidic totem. The duration is 1 minute. You touch a creature and invigorate its natural healing. The target regains 3d4 plus 5 hit points. For the duration of the spell, the target regains 1 hit point at the start of each of its turns. If the target is missing any fingers, toes, eyes, or other smaller body part, they regrow them when the spell ends. So, my first quibble, 3d4 plus 5 should almost certainly just be 3d4 plus, spellcasting mod.
Yeah, plus
Let's,
5 seems a little random.
Let's look up regular regeneration real quick. Because this is already a spell, but for all of your limbs, supposed to smaller limbs. So you're basically just making regeneration just smaller. Alright, so regenerate
That's fine.
is you touch a creature and stimulate its natural healing ability. Let me move this to the right spot. The target gains 4d8 plus 15 hit points, so he's probably just bringing that down a peg. For the duration of the spell, the target regains 1 hit point on the start of each of his turns, 10 hit points each minute, and then any severed body members. Oh, weird. It says body members. That feels weird to me for some reason. Are restored after 2 minutes. That's a very awkward time. If they have severed part, hold the stump, and the spell instantly causes the limb to knit to the stump. Interesting.
So my big power level critique with this is that the 1 hit point per turn of regeneration is super, super powerful in that it will bring them up from down every round.
And it's not concentration.
And it's not concentration. So even if you are downed, it will continue to bring them back.
Yeah.
So
the extra healing is very strong. It's the one healing.
What I would say is that regeneration is 7th level. And part of that is because of the 1 hit point per turn. Part of that's because of the healing, and part of that's because of the limbs. What you've done here, Justin, is saying it's enough to make it 3rd level by making the healing half as effective-ish and recovering only smaller body parts. I'm not sure that I can get behind that idea. I think also you misordered the components. I guess the Druidic Totem is the verbal component.
Yeah, that I made that joke while I was reading it, but I think that you were reading ahead, and so you were already confused about
I apologize. I heard you say material in my mind. I like what you're doing here, though. I like the idea of just taking a very strong spell and making it weaker. That idea is amazing.
I agree that it's a great idea. I just think that more of the power of regeneration than Justin realized is in that 1 hit point per round.
Yeah, I think you have to get rid of that 1 hit point per round.
It also lasts significantly less, but I think getting rid of the healing per turn is perfectly fine. It does last less, but it lasts the amount of time that matters for a battle. Right?
Yeah.
So, like, a battle's usually not going to last more than a minute long. That's 10 rounds.
Now, on the other hand, I think that this would be fine if you upped the duration, but also upped the casting time so that it's not castable in battle.
Oh.
I think that you could leave the 1 hit point per minute if you said that or 1 hit point per turn if this takes a minute to cast. Maybe then the duration is like half an hour or something. But
my alternative was going to be make it last an hour, but only make it 1 hit point per minute.
That'd be another way to scale it down. Yeah.
That would be 60 hit points, though. But regeneration, I guess, over an hour, that's still a lot. But go on, sorry.
I don't remember. Oh, yeah, I think that either of those are reasonable ways to scale it down. Either saying maybe it's like 10 minutes at a hit point per minute, then it's only 10 additional hit points if you're doing it out of battle, or up the casting time and the duration both so that it's not really usable in battle, but then you still get that hit point per turn or minute or whatever.
Yeah. I think a more interesting way to downscale regeneration might be to, instead of doing the regeneration, obviously you think of the per turn healing or whatever overtime healing. I think it would be interesting just to have a spell that simply does the part of if you lose a limb, you can reattach it. Because I don't think that's necessarily super broken.
Especially for 3rd level.
Especially for 3rd level, which, by the way, you could bring someone back to life with.
Yeah.
I think it'd be interesting to have the Revivify version to raise dead for regeneration. So, like, if you're missing a limb, it'd be obviously super niche, though, is the big thing. Probably a lot more useful in, like, super gritty campaigns. But those probably, 3rd level is probably a high-level spell at that point in super gritty campaigns. That's a hard spell to downgrade. I'll say that. Regeneration.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's got a lot of its power hidden in things that are very difficult to scale down.
I would also just copy-paste the classes that it's available instead of adding Ranger.
Yeah, it feels really weird to me that minor regeneration is not available to clerics.
Yeah, I don't know if maybe you just, like, threw some classes together, maybe? I don't know. I'm not sure why you didn't include Cleric and Bard on this list. But
well, honestly, I feel like including Ranger is fine since Rangers get access to healing spells. Like, Regenerate, Rangers could plausibly have access to if they got 7th level spells ever. I don't think that Ranger being on this is, like, an affront, but I really think that Bard and Cleric should have access to this.
Yeah. I think any spell that you're going to give a lesser version, any classes that get the stronger version should get that version as well.
Yeah, agreed.
I like this spell for more roleplay reasons. I mean, the only big roleplay thing that you get out of this is getting the fingers and toes and stuff back, which is a cool thing. Like, imagine you're going to like this, kind of poorish town. There's people who are hurt, like these people that work in the mill. This guy's lost his eye. This guy's lost his thumb. You come to the town, now you're the town hero because you're going around healing people's missing, these amputees essentially. So I like the idea of the roleplay. I think this does open up some doors. I just think the one hit per turn is not something that you can scale down to 3rd level.
Right. At least not with the casting time of 1 action. If this is going to be usable in combat, that 1 hit point per turn is just way too good.
Hence why the material component is a druid item. Yes, but like that doesn't have any inherent value to it, so you could just use a spellcasting focus.
But I think he was just trying to. He was saying that was part of his line of thinking for it only being available to druids. He thought that regeneration was only available to druids, and so he gave this a material component that fit with that.
That's fair. I think there's a couple things you could do to make this 3rd level. I think making an hour but 1 point per minute is fine. Or making
that's still 60 points of healing for a 3rd level spell slot.
That is true. It is still quite a bit. But I mean, you get prayer healing at that's still not quite 60 though. This would be kind of on par with healing spirit at that point, actually, like original healing spirit.
Right. Yeah. Well, and honestly, it'd be getting kind of close to heal at 5th level.
True, because heal's 70 points, and that's all at once.
Yeah.
Justin said 1 minute, 1 per 10 minutes. I think that might also be fair.
That gives you an extra 6 hit points, which is not unreasonable out of combat. So then you could just be like, okay, I'll do this at the start of a short rest, give somebody an extra few hit points.
Yeah, just make it heal some amount at the beginning, and then every 10 minutes it's 1 HP. And then you could also keep the smaller body parts. It's interesting, though, if you think about this smaller body parts thing, though, is that, like, some smaller body parts have better function than your, like, the tips of your fingers. Like, your eye clearly has better function than the tips of your fingers. If I was playing D&D and I had a character lose both of his eyes but lose 2 fingers, I'd be more inclined to give them blindness than give them some sort of penalty on their attacks. More inclined. I wouldn't say I wouldn't do both, but eyes clearly have a better function in the game than your fingers do. In the same vein, too, like your tongue, you can get your ability to speak back, which is very powerful for spellcasters. Some of your internal organs, maybe you got appendicitis at some point. You can grow your appendix back. Is that a minor body part? Unsure.
I took other smaller body part as a body part smaller than one of the ones listed there.
That's fair. So like your nose could probably work. Maybe.
Yeah, I was saying nose would be plausible. I don't think tongue would, because I think your tongue is bigger than any of your fingers. Like,
yeah.
I like the idea of this
I think
cast out of combat more.
Yeah, for sure. That's just what I was talking about. He liked it more for role playing. I would say though, if you could regrow both your eyes, I don't see why you can't regrow your tongue. Because it doesn't say that you only regrow one of the things. You regrow all of them that are missing. So if your eyes are missing and you can grow them back, I don't see why you can't grow your tongue. But maybe that's more of like a functional thought in my mind than like the size necessarily.
Right.
If I wasn't typing out in the last 15 minutes, I would have taken into balancing the healing. Yeah, I mean that's true. This is kind of
it's very slapdash. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I made my spell in like 20 minutes, so I mean, I'm not really sure how much of an excuse you get, but
I made 2 spells in 45 minutes, so like,
yeah.
I made mine in a car ride where I was looking at trees.
Hell yeah, dude.
Yeah.
That's where it is. All right. I think I don't want this spell to regenerate anything like a hand. Right. Yeah, I agree. I just think that like
eyes would equate to a hand.
That's what I'm saying. It's like eyes are so functionally valuable in the game. It's like, why can't I grow a hand? Like, because without your eyes, you can't do a lot of stuff. Like a lot of spells you can't use because you can't see. You can get blind sight, but in the same way, you can cast spiritual weapon or something, like to not have to use a weapon yourself. I don't know. It's rough to include eyes in there. I get fingers and toes. I'll get like nose. That's fine. Maybe ears, because you don't go deaf if you lose like your actual ear. Or like I wouldn't say your actual ear, because your ear's deeper.
The outer ear.
Like, yeah, the outer ear.
Maybe change it to small body parts or small like defects. Cause I'm thinking like getting rid of small scars as well.
Oh, yeah, that'd be cool.
Language about recovering, like regenerating
nothing like
scars.
a giant, like if you had like on your side, you had like a
actually,
giant gash.
That'd be awesome.
Cool.
That'd be like that'd be, for your point about it being role playing, Justin. You could have this be a spell that's basically plastic surgery for people. Like, I want to get rid of this mole. I want to get rid of this cleft chin. I want to get rid of my what they call when your lip is like
cleft palate.
Yeah, the cleft palate. That would be interesting. Genuinely. But yeah, I think there's merit in the idea here. I think because you had 15 minutes and you're trying to turn a 7th level spell into a 3rd level spell, that takes a little bit more time and consideration. But I like what's behind it, specifically the role playing aspect. Well, I think we're about at the end here. I think we should discuss what we want to do for homework, what we want to get ready for the next podcast. And I know that Zach is dreading this because
I have an idea.
You do?
I
okay.
have an idea too. Okay.
All right, perfect. Last podcast, the original homework was going to be feats, but Justin had the idea of the permanent spells. And I thought that was cool.
Pictures of your feet.
Yeah, we're gonna do feet picks in the next one. We're gonna build whole new mechanics about the feet. Are you flat-footed? Are you curved-footed? Do you have big feet, small feet? What are your feet like? We're gonna build a whole system based on that.
Really affects the movement in the game.
Yeah, exactly. Clowns, OP. Anyway, we're gonna each individually create a feat. Now we do in our home game. We're dabbling in the idea of like changing feats around, but we're gonna do classic 5e feats. Preferably, we're gonna want to make a feat that is reasonable. You can make it as strong as sharpshooter if you want, but if you make it stronger than that, we're gonna have to have a talk.
Well, and I think we're all in agreement that sharpshooter is maybe a little overshooting it for how strong a 5e feat should be.
Really, we want a feat that's like mobile or like alert. You know, like if they're valuable, they got good parts to them. They're not all maybe perfectly ubiquitous abilities, but
or maybe even Warcaster, like that's a very good ability. I don't think it's overpowered.
I think that's debatable in the realm of D&D. I think that definitely is debatable. Warcaster's definitely like, if there was tiers, Warcaster I could see definitely being in the same tier as Sharpshooter. Not number 1, but in the same tier. Same with like Great Weapon Master.
So this isn't what I meant by having an idea. I don't have an idea for a feat yet. I mean, I had an idea for a homework.
What I had an idea for was a homework category.
Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, that was just kind of my default thing. What are your guys' ideas for homework?
So my idea was to design a legendary magic item.
Ooh, that's a fun one. What was your idea, Zach?
I don't worry about it. Mine's lame compared to these.
What's yours?
I was going to say a divination spell.
A divination spell? I do want to move away from spells for the time being. We did 2 spells in a row. Fuck it, yeah. Let's all make a legendary item. I'm down with that. I make magic items. We're on DMs to some extent.
Yeah.
We don't make items. Zach is known for making broken items and not really knowing it, so I can't wait to see what he does when he actually tries to make something that's broken.
Yeah, just honestly write down what Ken's sword did, and then just put the legendary tag at the top and you're done.
Oh, that would be interesting.
Just bring my Ken's sword.
You could. If you don't think of any ideas, I'm more than happy to talk about your sword.
Justin, you can totally come up with something. You'll be fine.
Oh God, no! I can't make legendary items.
Just listen. You do League of Legends, like remake characters all the time. Just think of a weapon that they have and put that in.
Justin, let me make this really easy for you. A +3 weapon is a legendary item. If you can make something as creative and interesting and powerful as that, then you're fine.
I think
+3 weapons are very rare, actually. plus
I was
3
gonna say, I think-
armor.
Yeah,
Is
plus 3
legendary.
armor is legendary.
So make a plus 3 item. All right, I think you got the wrong idea. But no, all the legendary items, all the legendary weapons are plus 3 plus some crazy effect, like Vorpal Sword.
Well, and honestly, it doesn't need to be a super crazy powerful effect. It could be a lot of thematic effects that all come together
True.
into a powerful package. Like Whelm doesn't have like a single incredibly powerful effect. It's just a very powerful package.
Yeah, for sure.
I think my personal assignment for this will be to not make too complicated of an item, because God,
Well, and that's
damn,
honestly
make
the trouble
complicated.
with trying to make a legendary item.
Yeah.
Is that you kind of want to just make it a kitchen sink of like every cool idea that you can think of, but in some sense you might want to lean more towards the elegant side of like, well, what's the lowest number of abilities that I can give this that still feels legendary?
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, we've hit the 8:30 mark. I think we fit this in all perfectly well. We just determined our homework. 1 legendary item per person. I'm assuming Justin will be able to join us next week, so we're going to actually have 4 people on. So we'll have 4 legendary items that surely none of us will get to use in any of our campaigns, because we will all know about it, and it might get weird. I mean, I've made some legendary items. But yeah.
I'm gonna try to make a new one.
If
I
you
wanna try
want
to
to
make a new
bring a
one, yeah, for
pre-made
sure.
one, that's fine.
What I
But
wanna do
I'm
is-
going to be making a new one.
I want to not make a weapon, I think, is going to be my goal.
Ooh, nice.
Because weapons, I think I make a lot of those. All right, well, we will see y'all next week. Still don't have a sign-off, so I'm just going to seize the day once more. Carpe diem until we get a better one. So,
All right.
peace out, everyone. We're going off.